Hello friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. We start our video with a story in which our young OP had to deal with an evil neighbor. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Don't want to give me time to fix my mower? Enjoy your torn up yard. So this happened last summer. My neighbor gave me the job of mowing his lawn. He was kind of a jerk, but he paid me $10 a mow, so I didn't complain. I have one of those push mowers that has a motor assist on it. And the day that this happened, the cable that activated the motor was sticking, meaning that when I let go of the lever that activated the wheels, it'd just keep turning, meaning that I'd tear up the grass when trying to turn or move backwards. I noticed this and knock on my neighbor's door to tell him I'll have to wait until my dad got home so he could show me how to fix it. Cast. JN is jerk neighbor, me is you-know-who, D is dad. Me. Hello, JN. JN. Why haven't you started yet? Me. The motor assist on my mower's broken, meaning the wheel won't stop turning when I want it to, so I need to wait for my dad to get home from work so he can show me how to fix it. I can mow tomorrow, though. You'll mow my lawn now or you're fired. I try to explain to him that this'll tear up his yard. This is your last warning. Either mow or you're fired. Okay, then. I go back to my mower and start mowing. I made sure to miss a bunch of spots. I could have a reason to make a bunch of turns and mark up his yard. By the time I was done, the yard was a mess. When I get back home, I get a sticky note and a pen and put a message on his door saying, I quit. When my dad got home, I told him the story, and he started laughing. D. You are my son. Wait till your mother hears this. Later, JN came over with his twisted story of how he told me to stop mowing, but I wouldn't listen. My dad just laughed and slammed the door in his face. And our next story. Want me to make fancy coffees? Guess all the other drinks will have to wait. This might not be the most riveting of stories, but a long time ago, I worked for a chain of posh pubs in London. The one I worked at was in Maida Vale, a fairly wealthy neighborhood with several celebrity residents. Jude Law, for example. Anyway, I was an assistant supervisor in the pub and was always responsible for Sunday afternoon shift. Which, for those of you who are familiar with the UK know, this means Sunday roast was a big deal, and we had a really good roast with all the fixins, and we'd get really busy on Sundays with all of our tables full with people who'd come to eat and drink for half a day at least. For whatever reason, my manager had decided that, despite how busy we were on Sundays, that we only needed 2 people on the shift. Again, for those of you who are familiar with UK pubs, everyone typically orders at the bar, but it's table service, so me and the other person on shift were responsible for staffing the bar, pouring drinks, taking food orders, but also taking out the food, taking out cutlery and sauces, restocking, cleaning glasses, and bussing tables. You're essentially a cashier, bartender, and waitstaff all at once. And then there was the one thing I hated the most: coffees. We had this old, slow, partially broken espresso machine which none of us had been properly trained on. Making coffee on it took ages. The worst was that it would take so long that food orders would go out more slowly and a queue would form at the bar of people waiting to order drinks. I hated having to leave customers waiting at the bar who just wanted a quick pint or soda while I fussed with this stupid coffee machine for 15 minutes. We all hated the GD coffee machine and complained about it constantly. Luckily, however, demand for coffee wasn't that high at the pub, given that it's traditionally a venue for drinking alcoholic beverages. But then one day, corporate management announced they wanted all their pubs to sell more coffee. In fact, they had quotas of coffee sales they wanted us to meet, and they wanted us to ask every guest that was placing a food order if they wanted a fancy coffee drink like we're some sort of Starbucks or something. But they didn't give us a new proper machine, and they still provided us with exactly 0 training on making espresso drinks. For the most part on Sundays, I ignored this edict. We were so slammed just with regular beverages and getting out Sunday roasts that adding obligatory coffees into the mix would be suicide. Then one Sunday, my manager was in the pub doing paperwork and pulled me aside and said that he noticed our sales of coffee weren't what they should be, particularly on Sundays. He noted that Sunday afternoon should be our best day for coffee sales because everybody's in for the roasts. He then perched himself next to the bar to work on his paperwork, and I could kind of tell he was doing this so he could monitor whether I was upselling coffees or not. I tried to warn him. I said, with only 2 people on shift, when the rush comes, we're going to be really slammed. If I'm doing coffees as well as drinks and food service, there'll be a significant delay. Whatever, I'll jump on if things get out of hand, he said. So I decided he should see how crazy Sundays get and just what adding coffees to the mix would do. As usual on a Sunday, a trickle of people start filling into the bar around 11 a.m., but by noon it's already too deep at the bar, all the tables are full, and there's 2 full lines of food tickets with multiple plates of starters, mains, and dessert. It's now that I and the other bartender start selling the coffees hard. We're telling everyone, you know what would go well with that, a nice cappuccino or maybe a latte. And they're all agreeing with me. I wait until we have about a dozen coffee orders all lined up, and I tell the other staff member that he's on the bar in food service, and I go over to start preparing them with our old, slow, crappy espresso machine. It's at this point that things go a bit haywire. Food starts coming down the food lift, so the bartender is sprinting back and forth between the bar, the food lift, and the tables. The crowd at the bar is growing and becoming restless. They just want some beer. And I'm going as fast as I can with the coffees, but honestly, it takes a really long time. Then my manager looks up and sees the angry mob at the bar, my colleague running around like a crazy person, and asks me, "Why aren't you pouring drinks?" I show him my tickets. I have 20 fancy coffee orders. Manager decides to take over the coffee so I can go back to the bar, so I double down on the coffees. I'm getting people to order mochas, flat whites. I don't even know what that is, really, but now we sell them. Irish coffees, coffee with shots of Baileys or Amaretto. I'm going wild, and my manager's visibly sweating and frustrated and cursing at our terrible coffee machine. And then the best thing happens. We run out of coffee cups and saucers. He's now making coffees in some styrofoam cups he found in the closet. He's very close to making a cappuccino in one of those fancy Belgian beer goblets. Then finally he comes up to me all angry. "Stop offering people fancy coffee drinks." "But you said, no more coffee drinks." He never asked me to upsell coffee again. And our last story. Treat me like crap? It's time for the final strike. Happened over 20 years ago. I'm happy to have found a place to tell this. I was resting between jobs for a while, so was over the moon when I landed a temporary job at a medical facility as an IT guy. It was for 6 weeks, but stretched out to 8 at the end. I was introduced to the department head, the other IT guy, and the secretary, who told people that she was not just a secretary. I'm a lot more than that. Yeah, okay, let's call her Sally. Narcissistic just starts to describe her personality. Right from the first day, she was nasty, treated me like her PA, accused me of stealing, berated me for jobs not completed, even though those jobs were not mine. There were loads more incidents that are far too long to tell here. Now, it was pretty obvious from the crap he let her get away with, the department head and Sally were having an affair. The guy just had a kid with his wife. Fine. He was a nice guy, and it was none of my business, plus I was temporary anyway. I didn't care to judge, but did find it odd that these two were together. Anyway, through my IT assignments, many of the staff asked me what it was like to work with control. For some reason, I assumed they meant the IT department, and I said, it was fine. I liked working there, and the job was interesting. I got some funny looks and replies that didn't seem to make sense. It was only when one of them told me that she had been bumped through every department, this was a large facility, that I realized it was Sally they were talking about. I then started asking various people what happened with her, and the stories they told me almost made me give up on humanity. I thought she treated me badly. Little did I know. Turns out that the IT department was the only place left that would take her. There was no other place for her to go. She was apparently good at her actual job, so they couldn't fire her. She was universally hated throughout the place. Sally and the department head weren't having an affair. He just couldn't do anything about her, so he let her do whatever she wanted. Perfectly understandable, and she did treat him with respect. It comes around to my last week at the job, and I was determined to teach Sally a lesson. Thanks to the internet, I came across a very particular handbook that this sub would love. It was collated from the old alt news groups, which, not surprisingly, had a group similar to r/ProRevenge. There were 2 tips that caught my eye. One involved diesel and grass, clever but not useful in this case, and the other's the one I used. My final day arrived at last, and could not have been better. It was the middle of summer, and that morning was very misty. It gets like that here, but nearly always it's burned away by the sun. Right enough, about 11 a.m., the mist cleared to a very beautiful hot summer day. Perfect. I arrive at work. First thing I'm asked to do is destroy a hard drive. I looked at the boss and asked, "How am I supposed to do that?" He says, "I don't know. Use a sledgehammer. I laughed at the joke, but on the way to grabbing the drive, I walk into the janitor's office and ask if they have a sledgehammer. Guy goes through the back, came back out, and handed me a sledgehammer. Best time I had at that job. Even with the sledgehammer, though, I couldn't actually smash the disc, but did manage to bend it in half, which was good enough at the time. The afternoon comes around, and Sally ordered me to record manually all the software the facility used. This involved taking the details, including the serial numbers of the software, and writing them down on individual forms. There were over 200 different software programs the place had installed. I was mad at first, as that was not my job, it was hers, but thought, hey, it was my last day and it was an easy task. I recorded all the details except the serial numbers, which she specifically asked me not to miss. She didn't find out until 4 p.m. that afternoon when I was leaving. The look on her face was priceless, as there was now no one there to record them. Ha! Yes, that's petty revenge. Now for the pro. I walked out of the place with a giant smile on my face as I thought back to the misty morning when I walked past her parked car and threw rice on it. Thanks to the handbook, I discovered that rice thrown on a car when wet is almost impossible to scrape off when the sun dries it up. Don't know if this is true. I didn't hang around to check to find out, but all these years later, I really hope it worked. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.